everybody. Welcome to Calvary Lighthouse Church Sunday School. I'm Jessica, and here's Lindsay. How are you today, Lindsay?
Fine, I guess.
Is something wrong?
I'm a little upset because Lauren won't let me use her paints. She says I'm too young and I'm not old enough yet.
Well,
You messed them up, too.
You have a bunch of paints in here you can use.
Yeah, but her paint's better because it looks better.
Well, I can understand Lauren wanting to not let you use her paints to keep them nice. And I can also understand how sometimes when you're young, people don't think that you can do things that adults can do.
You do?
I do, because there's a story in the Bible about it.
There is?
Yes, and it comes from the book of Samuel.
Well, then let's get that take-home point done, and so I can learn more about this story.
Okay.
Listen.
All right, so our take-home point today is, with faith in God,
With faith in God,
kids can be victorious.
kids can be victorious.
With faith in God,
With faith in God,
kids can be victorious.
victorious.
All right, and we have a Bible verse today, too. Yes.
Alrighty.
Our Bible verse is actually from 1 Timothy, not from the book of Samuel, but it's 1 Timothy 4:12.
First Timothy 4:12.
And it says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." That was a lot.
Was I supposed to repeat that?
You did not need to repeat that, but I will repeat
Good.
it.
I cannot.
All right, it's 1 Timothy 4:12. "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." All right, you want to hear what we're going to do today?
Yes.
Okay, so we decided that we probably just have a few more weeks left of online Sunday school. So we hope to see all of you guys soon in our church. But until then, we decided that we were going to do some of our favorite Bible stories.
Yes.
And Lance got to pick the first one.
Yep.
And he picked David and Goliath. So we're going to learn the
yeah.
story about David and Goliath. So we have a couple things that we're going to do with you guys. We're going to do like a little demonstration. We're going to tell you the story. And we have a game.
And then we're going to do our prayer.
And then we're going to do our prayer.
And take over. And not take over.
And take over! Because we're going to be victorious.
Yes, the kids are.
Yes, kids can be victorious, right?
And
Only with faith in God.
Faith in God.
All right.
And,
But then we're going to do the take-home
The
point.
take-home point.
Yes.
So I
Okay.
meant to say.
So the first thing we're going to do is a little demonstration. Okay?
And go.
All right. Well, I have to get some supplies.
Alrighty.
As usual, we're not prepared.
As usual.
So,
We'll be right there.
we'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I have all my stuff. And Lindsay's here, too. She is actually being our camera girl so that you can zoom in on our materials. So I have two things here. I have a piece of string,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a piece of rope.
A piece of rope.
Okay, or this rope is actually attached to
String.
some hooks. But I have these two things. And I want you guys to think about which one you think is better, the piece of string or the rope. I'll give you a second to think about it, and then I'm going to hear what Lindsay thinks is better. Lindsay's doing this. All right. So, Lindsay, what's your verdict? What do you think is better, the rope or the string?
I think the rope.
The rope. All right, let's see how she did. So, definitely, if I was trying to pull somebody up a mountain, I would definitely need a longer piece of rope.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But the rope would definitely work a lot better than if I was using this piece of string, right? Because this would probably break and snap and all that stuff. It wouldn't be strong enough to definitely pull anybody up a mountain with. So rope, I think we can agree that rope is better. Maybe you guys said rope at home, right? But, what if I needed to sew my button back onto my sweater?
Oh, gosh.
And I needed to put this little tiny needle through that little tiny hole. Could I do that with this rope?
I don't think
Maybe
so.
I could just put it through the hook and just hook it on with the rope. No?
Yeah, I don't think so.
The rope's a little too big. It's a little too bulky. It probably won't tie very tight, so my bun will
And
probably
it
just
looks
fall
really
off.
bad.
It definitely doesn't match. So, sometimes what we think might be better just because it's bigger isn't always better. In this case, having a little tiny string that can fit through this little tiny hole, that can go through those little tiny holes to sew this back onto my sweater is better than a big, bulky rope.
Yes.
Right? So just because something's bigger doesn't always mean it's better.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show you that demonstration because that's going to lead us right into our Bible event about David and Goliath. And if you've heard the story, you know where I'm going with this. If you haven't heard the story, stay tuned because I'm going to get this stuff picked up. We're going to get our Bible and we're going to jump right in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're back and we have our Bible. And I was looking for, we have the story in a book, which I was going to read to you, but I can't seem to find it. So we're just going to read it from the Bible.
And to make it more fun, because we don't have pictures and stuff.
Yes, there's no pictures in this Bible. It's just a bunch of words.
But it is a Bible.
Lindsay's going to animate it. She's going to act it out a little, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how she does. All right.
I could try it.
All right. So we are reading the story of David and Goliath, and it's found in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 17. And it's verses 1 through 58, which is a lot.
1 through 58.
All right. So it starts off by telling us about how the Philistines and the Israelites were kind of fighting. They were fighting.
What's the Philistines?
It's just people.
Okay.
It's from
Philistine.
Sure
People at home knew.
Okay. So they were fighting. They were kind of in a battle. And the Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites occupied the other. And there was a really, really big champion of the Philistines called Goliath. And he was over 9 feet tall. So that's pretty much if you stood Lindsay on top of my head. That's how tall he would have been. Because I'm a little over 5 feet and she's 4 feet. So maybe a little bit shorter than that. But that's how tall this giant was. And we call them the giants, right? And he had a bronze helmet on his head and he wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels, it says. Now,
what does shekels mean?
Shekels is some sort of weight measurement back in the Bible days, but that is about the equivalent of 125 pounds. Okay? So his armor weighed about 125 pounds.
Oh,
on his legs, he wore bronze greaves. I don't know what those are. And a bronze javelin was slung on his back. Now, a javelin is like a pointy stick. Okay? It's a big pointy stick. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and his iron point weighed 600 shekels, which is about 15 pounds. His shield bearer went ahead of him, so someone to carry his shield was in front of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come up and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me." So he's telling him to choose one man. "If he's able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects." So basically that they would surrender. "But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." So then they would have to go be kind of like the slaves of the Philistines. Okay, then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. They were like, "Oh no, who are we going to send? One person, one man." Now David was the son of, I'm not going to say this right, Ephrathite?
Where?
Ephrathite, Ephrathite,
I don't know.
Named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time he was old and well advanced in years. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war, so they were all there in the war. The first son was Elah, the second son, Benadab, and the third, Shema. But David was the youngest, and he has the easiest name to say. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's sheep at Bethlehem. So David also followed Saul, but he was also a shepherd. He would take care of the sheep. So part of his job was to make sure that the sheep were taken care of, right? It was very important back in the Bible days. So for 40 days the Philistines came forward every morning and every evening and took his stand. Now Jesse said to his son David, take this epath. I don't know what that is. It's bushel, I guess. It's some sort of bushel. I'm up here somewhere. Now I lost my spot. Of roasted grain. So it's a bushel of roasted grain. And these 10 loaves of bread for your brother and hurry to their camp. So he was told to take this bread, right, and this grain to your brothers who were fighting the war. So take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit and see how your brothers are and bring back some assurance from them. So basically check on them, make sure they're doing good, and let me know how they're doing. Report back to us. They are with Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah fighting against the Philistines. Early in the morning, David left the flock with a shepherd, loaded up and set out, as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to his battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines, facing each other. So they're kind of like they're facing like this. Like they were going to battle and they would march at each other like this. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and greeted his brothers. Hi, brothers. How are you? Good.
Nice.
How's everything going here in the war? Yeah. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the big giant,
9 foot tall guy.
Yes, the Philistine champion, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. When the Israelites saw the man, they all ran from him in great fear. So all the Israelites were like, oh no, here comes the giant. Now the Israelites had been saying, do you see how this man keeps coming out? He keeps coming out to defy Israel. The king will give him great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give his daughter in marriage and will exempt his father's family from taxes in Israel. They wouldn't have to pay taxes as long as someone could kill this giant. So David asked the men standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills the Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? My throat is starting to get very dry. They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, this is what will be done for the man who kills him. When Elah, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the desert? So they're like, you're our little brother. You should be taking care of the sheep. Why are you here at this war? And he says, I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is, and you came down only to watch the battle. So they think David just showed up just to watch the battle and watch the fight. And now David's thinking, now what have I done? Can't I even speak? And he turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul went for him. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Saul replied, you are not able to go out. So David basically just told Saul that I am going to go fight this Philistine.
David said he was going to do it.
David said, I'm going to go do it. And Saul's like, excuse me? What? He says, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You're only a boy. And he has been fighting men from his youth. So this giant has been fighting men over and over and is a very experienced soldier. But David's just a boy. And so Saul is like, I don't think so. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping, when he says your servant, he's talking about himself, has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. And when it turned on me, I seized it by its hair and struck it and killed it. So when the lions and the bears would come for the sheep, David would fight them off. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God. So David has a lot of faith in God right now. He's saying, look, this Philistine is going against God.
Yeah.
And I will be victorious against this giant because I have faith in God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The Lord, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, will deliver me from this hand of the Philistine. So He's got a lot of faith in God.
A lot of faith.
Even though he's just a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. He's like, okay, go try your best. I tried to talk you out of it.
But if you die, it's not my fault.
Kind of, that's what he's saying. So then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. So he kind of put on his coat, right? He put on his coat of armor and on him and a bronze helmet. Put on that helmet. Probably looked big on David. That's not a helmet. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. So he had on all this heavy armor, right? David's got on all this heavy armor. He's just a little boy and he's got on all this stuff. It's like if you were to walk around in your parents' coat and their shoes.
Oh, I've done that before.
It's kind of hard to walk around with all that stuff on. And he's supposed to go fight a giant like this and he can't even barely walk. And he says, I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I'm not used to them. So he took them all off. Then he took his staff in his hand and he chose, sorry, that was really loud, sorry, 5 smooth rocks.
Well, these are not all smooth.
Well, they're mostly smooth. There's a few of them.
One.
Okay.
Smooth.
He's got 5 smooth rocks, okay? And, he chose them from the stream. He put them in his pouch of his shepherd's bag and his sling in his hand. And he approached the Philistines. Now, a sling is kind of like...
Slingshot.
Yeah, but it's more of like a row. It's kind of like a rope with a little thing on the end. So it's not a slingshot like you would use like a stick like this.
Huh.
It's more of like something like this that has a little pouch at the end that he'd swing around and let it go.
Yeah.
Okay? So that it's not quite a rope, but it's more like a little pouch with a loop at the end of it.
Like this, like pretend there's a pouch here. Like this, and you're like this.
Yeah, and he would just swing it around. Yeah, he wouldn't push it. He would just swirl around his head. You know, if you ever swirl something and you hear it go, and then you throw it.
Okay? And then throw it out.
So that's a sling. That's a sling that David would use. All right. So where was I at? And so he's got his rocks, his 5 rocks, and his sling. And he's going towards the giant. But what else does he have? Do you remember what else David has? Not just 5 rocks. He has faith
in God.
He's got faith in God. Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him, so he's got his guy with his big shield in front of him, kept coming closer to David, so the giant's approaching David. He looked David over and saw that he's just a boy, so ruddy and handsome, like he's never even fought anything, right? He's still young and looks good. He doesn't have battle scars or anything, right? And he despised, all of a sudden he's like, who does this guy think he is? And he said to David, I am a dog that you come at me with he says, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? He's kind of insulted. And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And he says, come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. So basically he says, when I kill you, I'm going to feed you to the animals.
Oh, gosh.
David said to the Philistine, you come against me with your sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. So he basically says, I have God with me, and you've disobeyed God. This day, the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. That's what David said to the giant. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. Okay? All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. So he's basically saying God's going to deliver the whole army into the Israelites' hands. Okay?
That's a lot.
He's talking a big talk, David is. You know, he's got a lot of words.
And apparently he's just a little boy.
And he's just a little boy. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him, so he didn't run away. He ran right at him. The other Israelites were kind of running away from the giant, weren't they? Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, look at this stone. Taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine right in the forehead.
Right in the noggin.
And he fell face down on the ground.
Oh, gosh. I can't believe this actually happened.
Yes. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. No sword, no javelin.
No, nothing.
Nothing. God. God and a stone.
Yes.
Right? David ran and stood over him, and he took hold of the Philistine's sword. So he took the giant's sword, and he drew it, and what did he say he was going to do? What did he tell the giant he was going to do? He said, I'm going to do what with your head?
Chop off his head.
And that's what he did. So when the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. They couldn't believe it. Their big giant was gonna protect them and do all their fighting for them. Now they're all scared and ran away because who does David have on his side? God.
And Jesus. Wait,
Then Jesus wasn't born yet. The men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout and pursued the Philistines to the entrance of Gath and to the gates of Ekron. So now the Israelites are chasing after the men that are running away. Their dead were strewn along the Sharam road to Gath and Ekron. When the Israelites returned from chasing the Philistines, they plundered their camp. David took the Philistine's head and brought it to Jerusalem, and he put the Philistines' weapons in his own tent. As Saul watched, remember Saul said, he was like, gave David all his armor and said, all right, go take your chances.
Go ahead.
I don't know what you're going to do. You're just a boy, but go ahead. So Saul watched David going out to meet the Philistines, and he said to Abner, the commander of the army, Abner, whose son is that young man? And Abner replied, as surely as you live, O king, I do not know. The king said, find out whose son this young man is. As soon as David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with David still holding the Philistine's head. Whose son are you, young man? Saul asked him, and David said, I am the son of your servant, Jesse of Bethlehem. And then David actually became a great king.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
So the story continues on and on. There's lots of more chapters about David in the Bible, but that's the story of David and Goliath. Mm-hmm. No one believed in David, right? He was just a little boy with some rocks.
Now that we learned this, I have a way different picture of when this happened. Like a way different picture of this.
Then you had the idea in your head, and now that we read it straight from the Bible, your picture's a little bit clearer. And
no, it's like completely different.
It's just different from what you originally imagined.
At first, it was like on a hill, him and him.
Oh, but you didn't realize all these other people were there watching it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, now I'm like, they're next to this castle, and they're like, there's on this.
Well, there's no castle, but they're just kind of out in the field.
And then there's this guy over here and this guy over here.
If we think about our take-home point, remember what our take-home point was?
Mm-hmm.
With faith in God, kids can be victorious. So does that relate to our story?
Yes.
Because
David had faith in God that he would beat
Goliath,
and it worked, and he was victorious.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, kids.
Because Goliath defied God, right?
Mm-hmm.
He went against God and he thought that his own gods were better, right? That there were other gods that were better than our God.
Than the real God.
Right? And so David's like, everybody else seems to be afraid of you, but I have faith in God. And that is very, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Having faith in God, we can do a lot of things.
Powerful.
I love that story. And I can see why Lance likes that story.
Yeah. It was a great one.
There's a lot of action in that story.
A lot of action.
All right. Now we have an action-packed game for you.
And that was long.
And what you're going to need is a stick that kind of looks like a Y. So we can make kind of like a little slingshot. And a rubber band.
Rubber band.
Some pieces of paper.
Piece of paper.
Which I don't have the rubber band and pieces of paper yet. Then you're going to make ball up, and then you're going to need something like you can do cans, you can do empty water bottles. If you have plastic bowling pins, you can use those. But we put the letters that spell out. I don't know if they can see the table. Can they see the table?
No, they can't.
Not at all?
No, I need it so they didn't. So G.
All right. So you're going to need, we wrote the words Goliath. Lindsay, you want to hold those ones up, and I'll hold these ones up?
I don't know if I can.
I'll hold 4, you hold 3. It spells Goliath. Well, it says Iath. Now it says Goliath. Okay? So, you need something. You don't have to write Goliath on it if you're just going to play a quick, fun game. We're writing Goliath on it for you guys.
For the Bible.
And what we're going to do is we're going to use our slingshot, and we're going to knock over Goliath. We're going to knock him down. Just like David did, right? And we're going to see if we can knock all of Goliath down. And if we can do it in the least amount of shots, okay? So yes, he did it in one shot. I do need to go get a rubber band, and we need to find some pieces of paper that we can find and ball up. So if you have like a newspaper that you can ball up, it could be just scratch paper, some pieces of trash, maybe schoolwork that you're done with. You can do that. So we'll get some paper, and then we'll set up our game so you can actually see it, okay? So we'll be back very quickly.
Okay, time for a game. So, we need slingshot, your rubber band, and a bunch of paper, like scrap paper, like we said. We have 12, but you don't need 12. But anyway, so we're trying to knock down Goliath, and as the least amount of tries. So you're gonna.
And David didn't win.
Yeah, David didn't win. So this is how you're gonna do it. You're gonna go like this, and then you're gonna shoot it. Then you're gonna let go, and it's gonna shoot at it.
All right, who's going first? You or Lance?
I'm gonna go first.
Lance will go first. Okay, I'm not very good at this. Oh, you have to tie this around here somehow. Like, I don't know how I did it. I just did it.
All right, Lance, you gotta stand behind the table. That'll be you can't go any farther than that.
Okay.
All right, let's see how many Lance can get.
Getting it on there. Wow. It's very...
Hopefully our stick doesn't break.
Yeah.
Ooh, good shot, but didn't get any. Try again.
But that's pretty good. If he gets one, it's my turn. Oh, yeah. He will just go first, and then I'll go. Come on, you can. Try it again. That kind of worked.
We're not very good at this game.
Lance, how
How about give Lindsay a try? Lance, try this one. Hold on.
One more time.
Lance is gonna try one more time, and then we're gonna give Lindsay a try.
Come on.
Ooh, all right. Let Lindsay try to see if she can get something.
If you get it first try. What?
She'll be like David, knocking Goliath down in one shot.
You see that? I tried a couple times, but it did not work.
Every day I'm shuffling.
She's already got her practice ones out of the way. That went the wrong way.
Well, I'm not like David. I did not get that first try. I'm gonna get in there. Okay. This sucks. Okay. I'm gonna try to.
You want to try to see if I can do it? Here.
I don't know. Let me try one more time.
All right, Lindsay's gonna try one more time, and then I'm gonna give it a try.
Okay.
Every day.
She got
I
one.
got a cup.
She got the G. Now it just says Goliath.
Oh.
All right, let's see if I can do it. All right, put the cup back up there.
Oh, put it back up there.
Let's see if I can knock down Goliath in one shot. Here it goes.
This is gonna be fun.
Can we use rocks?
I got it.
No, we're not throwing rocks in the house. Do not throw rocks in your house, peoples.
Yes. I'm trying to get a good angle. Okay.
All right, let's see here.
I didn't even.
That didn't go anywhere.
Right there.
Behind you.
All right, let's see here.
Whoa, you got two!
I got
The
two.
I and the G.
All right, let's see if I can get the rest of Goliath and knock it down here.
Oh, that one was not good.
You gotta find the right pebble. Nice smooth one.
This is your rightful pebble.
All right, ready? Where'd it go? Did it go down?
Yeah.
It shut down. Are you still watching? All right. Why is it going backwards?
I don't know.
This is one of those things you're like, I gotta get it. I gotta get it.
Then you don't get it. Well,
That was close.
it was close.
All righty. Well, you guys get the idea. Maybe you guys are better at this game than we are. We are
I think our slingshot's
gonna have to keep.
bad.
You do need a bigger, wider slingshot, I think.
I want to try.
It nudged it.
Here, just pretend you
I want to try again.
All right, Lindsay, you're
You did it! Oof. Sorry, I was swimming crazy. Ha.
All right, Lance is going to try to hit cup. So he's going to just shoot it, and the Goliath is already knocked over.
Owie! I hit Goliath.
Me.
All right, so that was a fun game, even though we weren't very good at it.
Well, I was the one who knocked down most.
I knocked down two.
I knocked down two.
I think you knocked down one. You only got the G. Okay, so all right. Anyways, so that was a fun story. That's a good story, and it's got a great message, right? This really goes well with our take-home point, which is with faith in God,
Faith in God.
kids can
Kids
be
be victorious.
just like David was victorious, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we have a simple prayer for you today.
Simple.
A simple prayer.
Simple
But I was
and
going to
easy.
ask you personally. So are you going to tell this story to Lauren, and then do you think she'll let you use her paints?
Yes.
You think so? Because you say, hey, look, kids can do grown-up-like things, right? And I can be responsible and not make a mess of your paints.
Just like David.
Just like David. But this is a good message when you have something tough to do, right?
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe you have to have a hard conversation. Or maybe you're nervous about telling a friend about Jesus.
Or maybe you're worried about your test at school.
Yes. Lindsay's in the middle taking her test at school. Have you prayed before taking your test?
Actually, no, I have not.
So maybe you should try that tomorrow when you have to finish it.
Actually, maybe I have done it once. Maybe I've done it once, but I will do it tomorrow.
Okay, so with faith in God, kids can be victorious.
With faith in God, kids can be victorious.
All right, Lindsay's going to do our prayer for us. Are you ready?
I am, okay.
All right. Per hands, per heads, per hearts.
Let's close with a simple prayer. Dear Father God, with your help, every kid can do great things. Help us to have faith and courage to do big things for your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, until next week with another favorite Bible story.
Bye.